Okay. We have everybody? Welcome to the Planning Commission meeting. It's April 6th, 2023. It's 6:32. Present, we have Travis Ney, starting on my left, and then we have Ned Hacker, Lisa Milkevich, who's our vice chair. My name is Jake Pearson. To my right, I have Jeremy Lowry, and then Michael Richards next to him. With staff, we have Zachary Smallwood, Susan Nixon, and Mustafa Al-Janabi. Sorry. If you have a phone, if you could silence it, that would be great. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed online at murraycitylive.com and facebook.com/Murray City, Utah. There's going to be a public comment section during the meeting. During this time, the public is welcome to come up to the podium and make a public comment. If you do make a public comment, please come up, state your name and address, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Even though sometimes the microphone does not sound like it's picking up your voice, it is, and it's being broadcast. So even though it may not be amplifying it, it's important that you speak into the microphone so those watching it at home can hear you. Those watching at home can submit comments to the Planning Commission email, which is planningcommission@murray.utah.gov. This is the only way that we can get your comments, so please email them. If you make comments on the video, we will not see those. Okay, before we move to agenda item 1, did I miss anything? Okay, let's do it. Our first item on our agenda is the approval of minutes from January 19th, February 2nd, and March 2nd. And we did talk about a few changes that need to be made to those in our pre-meeting. Are there any other changes we need to discuss? If not, we can entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that the Planning Commission approve the Planning Commission meeting minutes for January 19th, February 2nd, and March 2nd with the administrative corrections discussed in our pre-meeting.
Perfect. So we have a motion from Commissioner Hacker. Do we have a second?
I could second that.
We have a second from Commissioner Milkevich. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Perfect. Second item is our conflict of interest. Does anybody have a conflict of interest?
No.
Either do I. Okay, our third item is our finding of facts. We have one. It's the Ridges at Murray conditional use permit. Did anybody see any issues with that? If not, we can entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I make motion that we approve the conditional use permit, or approve the finding of facts for the Ridges at Murray PUD conditional use permit as written.
Thank you. We have a motion from Commissioner Hacker. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second from, was that Commissioner Lowry?
Yep.
Commissioner Lowry. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Perfect. Okay, we're going to now move to our agenda item number 4, which is Rhino Property Management, and that is going to be presented by Susan? Perfect. Susan, we'll turn the time over to you.
Thank you. Okay, this request is from Rhino Property Management at 97 West Winchester Street. The property is on the corner of Winchester and Malmstrom. You can see the aerial highlighted there of the location. It's just under a half-acre site. It is currently zoned RNB. It recently went through a zone change from R18 to RNB residential neighborhood, approved by the City Council, and with the intent that the property owner would come back and go through this process to convert the existing dwelling into an office use. The office is proposed to be for property management, and that's a permitted use in the R&B zone, but the reason it is before the council commission tonight is for any new commercial businesses or structures does have to have conditional use approval from the planning commission. So with that, then the applicant has provided a site plan as shown on the monitor there. It does have the existing home he would convert to office, and there's an existing garage at the rear of the property. And there is the layout of the parking lot with some landscaping on there. In our R&B zone, one of the goals or the policies, it does state that where possible, existing homes should be preserved and converted to appropriate uses and should have a residential character. So that's the reason he's here, and it does meet that policy that we have for the R&B. The R&B is also limited to certain hours and lighting, et cetera. It serves as a buffer from a busy arterial street or high commercial intense use to the residential. And so this is a perfect buffer from Winchester Street being busy and the adjacent residential neighborhoods. And, let me go back here. This particular property is surrounded currently, though, by residential zoning and residential uses, as you can see in the zoning map there. The property received a couple of variances from the hearing officer last month. With the conversion of the home, the property has certain constraints, obviously, because it sits where it sits. So in order to meet the code requirements for R&B, property owner, Mr. Henderson, applied for a couple of variances in order to meet parking requirements and access requirements. So the first variance that was granted is to not install the landscaping along the east property line in order to meet the minimum access requirement as required by the fire department. The existing setback is about 25 to 27 feet on the east side, and the fire department requires a minimum of 20 feet. And of course, we would prefer 24, so that would allow for two-way traffic. They applied for the variance. The hearing officer did grant that approval to not install the landscaping on the east side. The second variance was also for the west side, southwest corner of the property, adjacent to the 90-degree parking, shown where you can see where my finger's pointing. There. They could have met the parking requirements with angled parking at this location. However, it really was an awkward situation and would cause, maneuverability for vehicles that have to do a three-point turn and kind of jog their way back up, and it wasn't really a smooth transition. So we would prefer the 90-degree parking, and so they applied for the second variance. And rather than have a 10-foot buffer landscaping, they would have a 3.5-foot buffer landscaping. And of course, they'll still have the 6-foot solid wall. So in order to provide for a better circulation of vehicles, it actually made more sense. And the hearing officer granted the variance. So there will be a 3.5-foot buffer landscaping along the west side, and the 6-foot solid wall is required along all sides, the east, south, and west. They will also need to maintain the 10-foot setback as required for commercial uses for the 6-foot solid wall. And then here's a floor plan of the dwelling or the office. It does have 2 floors. You can see on the first floor he's got office space, reception area, break rooms, et cetera, and also in the second floor office areas also. The total square footage is just over 3,000 square feet, and based on the requirement for 1 stall for every 250 square feet of office space, the requirement is 12 parking stalls for the office use. And then also with the attached garage and detached garage, it was just about 2,000 square feet of storage area that would require an additional 3 parking stalls. So the minimum required parking is for 15 stalls, and the applicant has provided 15 stalls as shown. Also in the R&B zone, it requires a minimum of 15% total landscaping of the site, and they are close to 23%, so they actually exceed the requirement. And here's some photos of the home structure. that does have a residential look to it, and going through kind of a little bit of improvement there, cleaning up the property. We did send out notices to this. I did not receive any public comments for this particular application. We did receive some for the variances. A couple of neighbors attended that meeting and actually voiced their opinion as they were in favor of this. So we haven't had any negative comments. And then based on the analysis and application, the findings for this approval for the conditional use is outlined with the 3 findings as listed there. And staff is recommending approval for the conditional use for Rhino Property Management, subject to 12 conditions as listed. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Susan? No? Okay. Thanks, Susan. Is the applicant present? Could you please come up to the podium and state your name and address?
Paul Henderson. My address of residence is 1199 Midge Drive in Bluffdale, but I'm here for 97 West Winchester.
Perfect. Thanks for being here. Have you had a chance to review these conditions?
Yes, many times.
And would you be able to comply with those?
Absolutely.
Okay. Is there any other information you'd like to share with the commissioners?
No, I guess someone's got to be first on the street to do this, so I'm happy to take the plunge. I've been working with the neighbors. I think they're all pretty happy about what's happening, and they're in favor of the fence and happy that we are a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday business and not have to worry about late nights and weekends. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Does any of the commissioners have a question for the applicant?
I have one.
Go ahead.
So we're looking at the staff packet here, and one of the items was lighting. And it talks about lighting poles at no higher than 18 feet. And it talks in here about shielding the light from other lots. I think there are, at least 4 other residents adjoining your property. And I'm wondering if you have any idea what kind of height you might use for lighting, for light poles.
Yeah, so we're not putting light poles in. The luxury we have is that we have the house there and then the detached garage in the back. So we're going to mount the lights on those about 15 feet up
Perfect.
at the 30% angle down is what it calls for. So that's the plan.
And the reason I ask that is typically in business areas, sometimes there's an issue with tall light poles and the residual light goes over into other properties and it's an issue. So,
Yep, no light poles.
all right, great, thank you.
I have a question about the hours of light as well, but I'm not sure if I should ask the applicant or if we should discuss it amongst the committee. So I'll just go. The zone allows for the lights to be on between 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. at night, and then requires that the lights go off within an hour after closing. You said you're working 9 to 5. My only thought there is having residents on 4 sides. Would a light on up at 15 feet at 11 o'clock at night be in someone's bedroom window, and if it's necessary? I don't know if the commission has any thoughts on that, and if it would be a burden to you to ask you to turn it off with closing a business or at the latest 10 o'clock. I don't know. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, do you have any comments about that?
Sure,
Go
yeah. So
ahead.
the lights that we're putting up are security lights, motion detected lights. The only lights that'll be on at night are the ones that are actually already affixed to the house, by the garage, by the front door. Regular residential lights. The parking lot lights will only be motion detector lights.
So it sounds like it's a non-issue. You're already addressing it. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Nope. Perfect. Thanks, Paul.
Yep.
Okay. Let's open the public comment period. So if you'd like to make a comment, please come up to the podium, state your name and address. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. And those watching remotely can make comments by emailing planningcommission@murrayutah.gov. And that is the only way you can submit a comment remotely. So if you'd like to do one, please use the email address. And just, if you do make a comment, just a reminder that we will probably not address your comment immediately, but may address it later. So if there's anybody that wants to come up to the podium, please do so. Have we received any emails? Okay, seeing nobody, we're going to close the public comment period. Discussions, you want to discuss the lighting anymore? or
I feel good knowing what the plans are.
Any other discussions? If not, we could entertain a motion. Yeah.
I'll make a
You look-
motion. I want to make a motion.
Good, do it.
I'll make a motion that the planning commission approve the conditional use permit for the office use for Rhino Property Management addressed 97 West Winchester Street, subject to the 12 conditions listed.
Thank you. We have a motion from Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
Mr. Chair, I would like to second the motion.
We have a second from Vice Chair Milkovich. Susan, can you do a roll call vote?
Yes. Mr. Richards?
Yes.
Ms. Milkovich?
Yes.
Mr. Lowry?
Yes.
Mr. Hacker?
Yes.
Mr. Ney?
Yes.
And Chair Pearson?
Yes. Thank you. Okay, congratulations on your approval of your application and welcome your business to Murray. Okay, let's move on to item agenda number 5, which is the Trip Lane subdivision. And this is going to be presented by Zachary Smallwood.
Yeah. So this is a request from NeighborWorks of Salt Lake for a final subdivision review. As you all are aware, 871, look now, I don't even know. Yes, 871 West Trip Lane is the property address. It is located in the R16 zone, which requires a minimum of 6,000 square feet. The Planning Commission granted subdivision approval back in November 17th. So they've been working on getting that all prepped for final, and now we're at that phase. So nothing really has changed except for addressing the comments that the Planning Commission had made and staff had made in the preliminary review. So I'll go through just a couple of those real quickly. The first one was the lot frontage on Lot 7 here was not wide enough, so they did make that change. It does now meet all the requirements of the R16 zone. There was a 2-foot discrepancy in the road width. That's been addressed. It's now the required 49 feet. As another comment of access, there were two points that needed to be taken care of. First was this portion up here. So Murray City, the city engineer is working with the power department to dedicate that small section. It's technical mumbo jumbo is pretty much what it does. We have to dedicate to ourselves, so it's weird. But they're in the process of doing that. The applicant has recorded a cross-access and pedestrian access easement along this little strip of property right here, which will allow them to cross and connect up to and get to Riverview Junior High. So that is now put in for eternity, pretty much. So unless all parties agree to remove that easement. So everything else meets the requirements of the R16 zone. Let's see, things that I'm talking to. So fencing, there is proposed to be a 6-foot fence all around the perimeter unless a specific property owner asks not to have one. And then, let's see, grading and drainage, that is this guy here. So back in the preliminary review, we hadn't determined who was going to own that piece of property where the grading and drainage is, which is labeled as parcel A on your documents. Through the preliminary, and now the city did say that we would accept that parcel and maintain it after all improvements have been put in. So we will be taking over that. Other than that, let's see. Those were the major concerns. Not much else. A lot that are subject to the conditions here are just cleanup items, which I think they're already working on. So we as staff are recommending that the Planning Commission grant that final subdivision approval subject to these 8 conditions. Any questions I can answer at this point?
I do have a question about the fencing. You
Okay.
said unless the applicant doesn't, or unless the homeowner doesn't want the fence, then it's not required?
The neighbor, we usually don't force them, like if they're not forced to get a new fence if they don't want a new
I see.
fence. Yeah,
But along the school property line,
I
a fence-
anticipate there
a
would
fence
be, yeah,
would
a
be
fence will be put there. Yeah, it's not up to these, not up to these property owners.
I see, okay.
It'd be up to these property owners up here.
okay. Thank you. Any other questions for Zach?
Zach, could you go back to the drainage slide?
Yep.
On the bottom right corner there, I don't want to talk about drainage, I want to talk about access. So you said an easement has been made over the property owner's property in that corner. My question is, if people are coming, or if students are coming onto, or wanting to go to school, how will they get to school?
They will cross this sidewalk and connect through this sidewalk
So
here,
there'd be no connection, they have to
There
go
is no
all the way
connection.
through that property?
through here,
Wait, there is no connection through there?
not through here, no.
I see. So they
They
gotta
will be
walk all
going
through the
through-
neighborhood,
They will go up and
up
around.
and around?
So I'm gonna ask the project owner if that connection from there to the school property could be put in.
What is the little corridor there, Zach?
This is existing. This part right here, this is just showing existing.
But who owns
But
it?
that is owned by the property owner.
This is owned by the property owner and now this will become part of parcel A, right through here somewhat.
But why did they render it with it? I mean,
Because
they-
this is a landscaping company that made
I
that.
see.
Um,
I see.
You can
There's the
see
other
it,
one.
you can see it better here.
So I guess I would like to address a connection from the street, Maria Oaks, north onto this particular property that we're talking about, and then some kind of a sidewalk that goes on, I guess it wouldn't be, it'd be private property as well, but then onto the school property in that corner.
Yeah, we can't require the school property
No,
to
I'm
put
going
in
to ask
sidewalk.
about that. That's going to be a real issue, and I would rather have it be put in as a amenity perhaps versus going onto the property owner, the person who owns property, lot number 13,
Livingston's?
pardon me,
The Livingston's, I think?
whoever
So-
owns lot 13. Anyway,
So the problem with that is that this has been the whole problem the entire time. They have to cross that property.
right, and they have an easement for that.
They have an easement across that small little section right
Right,
there.
and I'm saying, once they get into the development we're talking about, then have a connection over to the school property.
So are you suggesting change lot 8 so that that tip is part of the city-owned parcel A, and then they could just walk along that fence line into public
Correct,
schools?
versus going on private property that belongs to lot 13.
Well, where's the property line at? Is the property line the dotted line or the solid line on lot 13?
They're both. So lot 13 is the larger property.
Okay,
You can kind of see that better.
But on the north end of the property, they'll have access via Trip Lane to the junior high.
So,
they would
They
just
will.
have to walk through the entire
yeah,
neighborhood.
they just have to
turn
walk
right
around Trip Lane.
Well,
Instead
but
of
it-
just turning right into the
Yeah.
So-
school.
So you can kind of see it here. This is the property where the house is located. This is the property that's been the bane of NeighborWorks' existence. Is this whole thing is owned by this property owner.
Oh, so the Wenger does not just go into this property in question, it goes all the way along the property
Goes all the way
line.
along.
And
That's a
in-
great question.
And into the
I
street.
don't know off.
And into the street.
Uh,
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
know it goes all-
But you can just push the pathway north, right? Off that property.
Just take the tip out of lot 8.
that turns into a whole nother engineering thing. This would probably have to
Yeah.
be tabled at
It's
this
going
point.
to be an issue,
For,
the day this opens, it'll be an issue. And I would rather have kids walk on this property versus on another private property piece that when that Lot 13 gets sold, it's going to become another issue.
No, it won't become an issue.
Zach, can you go
There's
back?
not a way for it to become an
Yeah.
issue because the sidewalk is public.
Zach, can you go back to the?
No, the
to-
easement is good, but there,
but, well, okay, I
this
just
other
wanna-
connection will still be open.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding the issue. Can you go back to the previous slide where you show the different lots? So I mean,
Sure will.
and go make it smaller, if
What's
that's
there
okay.
today?
So you're talking about, so if somebody lives on lot 7, they'd have to walk past lot 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, take a right to go there, and
Perhaps.
that's too hard for
What
them?
about all the
Perhaps.
people that live in this neighborhood? They're going to
There's a
walk up
connection.
through here, in through this access.
Well, but they already don't have access to it, or are they
You're right,
walking
but
through it now?
They're
They're
I
walking
think-
through it now.
There's an access today.
Yeah.
It's private. It's private. This is what we discussed for hours previously. It's private, and the city didn't want to use eminent domain to take it, so it'll stay private, and kids will continue to use it.
Gotcha.
So that
So
fencing
they
staying.
can come out of this development, go south and,
East.
or east, and then go through there to still get in. But my issue with that is that's still private. We have an easement across the piece that's adjacent to Murray Oaks Street. We don't have any easement going into the schoolyard.
So that beige fencing, vinyl fencing is, I think, what Mr. Hackers, Ned, sorry, is saying, is that vinyl fencing will stay, so it'll be enticing for kids to go through that little vinyl fencing, but could be ticketed or fined for being on private property. Is that what's going to happen?
I honestly can't speak to it. It's private property. They could decide that now that they've granted that easement, they could fence off that access and they will now have to walk through.
So couldn't we, though, I guess we could talk to the applicant and maybe talk.
Either way,
so-
if that's the route that's going to have to go, it'll probably, so I wouldn't recommend final subdivision approval because this should have been hammered out at preliminary.
Yeah.
Because I don't see an issue with the distance. I don't understand that issue. But then now I'm seeing if there's an issue of looking like this is the way you should go, and kids are going to be on private property and get in trouble because it looks like this is the entrance to the school when they should, but we're intending for them to be on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Rest assured, it does not look like it's the entrance to the school. It's on an incline. There's weeds there all the time. It's a kid-made footpath that exists through there.
So it will look like they should be on the sidewalk, and it won't be a concern.
Kids are going to use it.
Yeah, but I
They
mean,
use it today.
so I guess that there'll be a sidewalk there. It will walk them through this subdivision, and they'll have to walk down the sidewalk and take a right on Trip Lane. And if NeighborWorks is okay with that, and they think that whoever's going to buy Lot 8 isn't going to be annoyed by that, then
Well, I mean, parcel A will be owned by Murray City. It'll be a public available sidewalk.
Right,
So
and-
that doesn't matter what Lot 8
Lot
thinks.
A, though.
what's that?
We're not talking about Lot A.
Lot 8. Lot
You
8.
said A.
I said 8.
8 isn't owned by the city.
No, but
Oh, he
parcel
was
A. I'm
speaking
saying,
about Lot 8 and the person being upset with Lot 8.
Yeah, if they're
having
annoyed-
people walk by it.
Right, if
Next
they're- I
to
mean-
A.
Right. So, I mean, I think that they've provided access from a public street onto another public street, and people have to walk past 5 houses and go right.
And kids will be kids.
Right, and kids are, yeah, you're right. I mean, some kid is going to jump over Lot 8's fence, and that's going to happen. And
Well, and if that tunnel of a fence, because right now there's like a vinyl fence, you walk this way, then you walk this way and down this tunnel. If that tunnel stays there and the property owners aren't happy with people using it, they can put up a sign that says private property and close it. if
They
they'd
can
like.
close off the fence, for sure.
Yeah,
And
we're not
I don't know
preventing
if
that.
that's their intention, now that they've given and recorded an easement on the property. I don't know if that is their intention to fence that off now, so that there is no way for somebody to walk from here over to here, over to here. They may fence that off now and say, this is now our property, stay off. And so, yeah,
And if that wasn't their intention, then they're okay with people using it.
I think, let's have, it sounds like the applicant wants to address some of it, so,
Property owner.
yeah.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Zach then? Okay.
Well, actually, I have one other question. So
Sure.
we're recommending vinyl fencing on the, maybe this is for the applicant, vinyl siding on the east side. You know how many home runs get hit there? Oh. Just be aware of how many home runs get hit there. I've spent a decade plus at that ballpark. There's a lot of home runs get hit there.
There's going to be holes to that fence.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. Any other questions for Zach?
Hey, the kids that hit home runs will be happy, all right? You know.
They'll have proof. There's my
Yep,
mark.
exactly.
Okay, if there's no other questions for Zach, let's have the applicant come to the podium. Please state your name and address.
My name is David Foster, and I work for NeighborWorks Salt Lake in 622 West 500 North, Salt Lake City, Utah. And
Thanks.
so we definitely want, I hear what you're saying, we definitely want a place for the kids to walk through there. And so I've met with the Livingstons, they're very kind. It's our understanding that they want to allow a place for the kids to come through there too. So we'll figure that out. If I got to make an easement a little bit larger than what it is, but I know they are wanting an access for the kids, and so that's one of the main reasons that they signed the easement in the first place. And so I do hear what you're saying. It's going to be best for them just to cut through that corner like they have been, and so we'll figure that out. We'll make that happen. Because you're right, I don't think they should be walking necessarily through that whole subdivision to get over there. So I feel like the Livingstons will work with us, so that won't happen. So.
Thank you.
Great.
Yep.
Good. Thank
Um,
you.
Have you read David, can you stay up the podium for just a second? Have you read the conditions in this permit?
Yes, I
And
have.
are you able to comply with all those?
Yes, we are.
Okay, perfect. Does anybody have any questions for David
Just
while
if
he's
we
up
can
here?
display the conditions, please.
Well, now I have questions about the fencing. Again, I'm not sure if it's for discussion for us or for the applicant. And what is our role here? Can we ask that he put a masonry fence along that line just for the homeowners who buy the place will consistently have to replace their fence?
Huge expense.
Every season, they'll have to replace panels twice.
Yeah,
Fence
I
there
mean, I
today.
have no problem coming up with something
You could
that's
put
nice
the
that
vinyl
won't be
fence
destroyed. I mean,
on
if we
the
gotta
side
put
of the fence.
some kind of heavier duty thing right there, but I know the students use that place to cut through there. And so we're aware of that, and so we want to be community friendly. That's, what we do, and so.
So
we
the
don't have any
east side.
problem is trying to come up with something so they can cut through that little corner. I know the Livingstons are open to it too, so.
Okay.
So she's referring to, would you be okay with a different material fence on the east side instead of vinyl, a masonry fence that would be more durable when it gets hit with balls and whatnot?
Yes, yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I have been going over there every now and then and fixing that fence. And so they do come through, and I don't know if they kick it or what they do. Kids are kids, so yeah, we don't have a problem putting something more durable over there.
Great.
So, yep.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the applicant?
I think it should be in here.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you guys.
Okay, let's move to the public comment period. If you'd like to make a comment, please come to the podium. Please state your name and address. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Those watching remotely can make comments by emailing planningcommission@murray.utah.gov, and that's the only way you can make a comment. If anybody would like to come up, please do so. I see nobody here. Any emails? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment period. And do we have anything we need to discuss further?
No, but I'll make a motion.
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion that the planning commission grant final subdivision approval for the Trip Lane subdivision on property addressed at 871 West Trip Lane, subject to conditions 1 through 8 as submitted.
We have a motion from Commissioner Ney. Do we have a second?
Mr. Chair, I could second that motion.
There's a second from Vice Chair Milkevich. Okay, Zach, can we get a vote?
Yeah, Commissioner Ney,
Yes.
Commissioner Milkevich,
Yes.
Commissioner Richards,
Yes.
Commissioner Hacker,
Yes.
Commissioner Lowry,
Yes.
and Chair Pearson.
Yes. Okay, congratulations. Glad to see something going in there. And you know, we're hoping you can make that work for the kids and everybody around there. So thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Please.
thanks for everything you guys have done here. This has been a tough project. You guys have gotten put through the ringers quite a few times, so thank you for everything you've done here.
Thank you guys for approving. So we're excited to move forward over there and get something good for Mercy.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on to our agenda item number 6, the Ridges at Murray, and this is going to be presented by Susan Nixon.
Thank you. This application is submitted from Reynolds Construction, Brad Reynolds Construction, for the property, 2 parcels, address 662 West on 5300 South and 5322 South Allendale, as shown on the aerial there. It's just about 5.5 acres. Property went through a zone change and general plan amendment about a year ago. Did have preliminary approval, as you all remember, about a month ago. Preliminary subdivision approval and conditional use permit approval for the planned unit development proposal. The property is currently zoned RM15, and RM15 does allow for planned unit developments with projects of more than 2 acres. And this has 5.5 acres. So the project is for 66 townhomes or 66 parcels with common space. Here is the site plan. The north is actually on the left side of this map, so it's turned a little bit sideways. There will be 2 accesses off of Allendale Drive into the PUD. The PUD does have private drives that are going to be 26 feet of hard service, 30 feet of right-of-way. It does meet the fire department approval for the width of the driveways, or accesses, I guess. There aren't really no significant changes from this final request from the preliminary. Really, the only differences are the open space. They did add, I guess I'll go to the landscape map here. Per the Planning Commission request, they did add a couple of benches in the landscape area, the triangular area as shown on the map there, which is a triangular open space area, which also serves as a detention area for the project. The project also has 33% total coverage for landscaping and additional landscaping in front of the dwellings. I'm going to go back to this site plan. The project has, the RM15 zone requires a minimum of 2.5 parking spaces per unit, and each of the units have a 2-car garage, plus all the units allow for parking in front of the garages, with the exceptions of units 153 through 164, which is this area here. They do still have 2-car garages, but to make up that extra half stall, they have provided some visitor parking over in this area, and then upper left corner there. So they do meet, well, they actually exceed the minimum parking required for the site as a whole. The RM15 allows for a density of up to 12 units per acre. They average about 11.5 units per acre. So they do meet all the density and parking requirements. The beauty of a planned unit development does allow for flexibility for setbacks, and this is to accommodate property constraints or in order to cluster it, make open space available and cluster units. So the applicant has proposed, as shown up on the monitor, that the front setback will range from 20 to 30 feet, and the rear setback will range from 15 to 27. Interior side yards between 5 and 39, and the corner side yards 5.5 to 23. The RM15 zone allows up to a height of 40 feet. They are proposing a maximum height of 34.5 feet, which is comparable to residential, single-family residential, allowed 35 feet. Staff feels that this proposal is actually an excellent proposal as far as it does provide some kind of a transitionary area. I'm going to go back to this map. From the residential area to the east, as highlighted there in the yellow, to the commercial on the west, which is a couple of rehab centers. It does provide for a good transitionary area, transition buffer between the residential and the commercial. And that's just a couple of aerials, photographs of the property as it currently is. There is an existing billboard on the corner, on the corner adjacent to 5300 South, as shown in this aerial here. You can see the billboard there. There currently is access off of 5300 South to the billboard. That access will have to be maintained, and that does require an agreement between the applicant and UDOT, and the city and UDOT, and then the city again and the developer. And Planning Commission was given a copy of that access agreement earlier today. And that was drafted by our city attorneys, so it should meet all the legalities of what we need to do. And the applicants received a copy of that also, but they will need to review it and have their legal team also review it before it's signed. It will need to be recorded when the subdivision's recorded also. There was also an update on the CCNRs per our attorney's office that does specify that there be some kind of a maintenance, who's going to maintain the emergency access gate off of 5300 South and the paved area for that. So that was added on to the CCNRs as requested. As indicated in the preliminary review, Allendale is currently it's not a busy road, but will become busier with this. And the traffic study that was presented a year ago does indicate that the level of service is poor in this area, but our city engineer, the only recommendation that he has made is that there will be a traffic calming implementation, which is, this is an example of an electronic feedback speed sign. That will be posted on Allendale Drive. And basically, it will flash whenever you go over the speed limit of 25 miles per hour. And then I just included a couple of the architectural renderings. The subdivision approval tonight is not necessarily approving the structures themselves, but I just threw this in for information. That was approved with a conditional use previously in March. So there will be units from a duplex to sixplexes on the property. 5300 South is a very busy street, over 30,000 vehicles per day. And to serve as a buffer, we asked the applicant to come up with some kind of a attractive yet buffer wall that would serve both purposes of being a buffer and being attractive. So they presented this photo showing that it's an 8-foot solid masonry wall with some wrought iron and with some jut outs along the area. So it kind of breaks up that visual solid wall appearance. And we feel this is a really good solution for that.
Did we discuss the width of the sidewalk? I don't recall reading that.
It's on 53rd?
Yeah.
There isn't there a sidewalk? There is a sidewalk. Yeah, there is an existing
There's an
sidewalk.
existing sidewalk, but I would imagine that's a pretty beat-up sidewalk. It's had a,
But that, I think, is in the UDOT right away. So.
so UDOT would have to be someone to address it if we were going to do anything about it.
Right, yeah,
So it's never going to happen.
so. Probably right.
Okay.
Okay, so for final PUD approval, we have come up with the following findings. There are 4 as outlined there. Basically, it meets all the zoning intent and complies with the subdivision ordinance and meets our general plan. And then staff is recommending approval for the final PUD subdivision based on the 12 conditions as outlined. I do want to point out that in our pre-meeting, Ms. Mukavich pointed out that the existing fence to the west and north are not vinyl. There's kind of a combination of wood and vinyl. So in the condition, let's see,
Number
there's a
3.
condition that says the existing 6-foot vinyl fence.
Number 4.
Number 4.
Number 4, okay. You may want to just change that to be the existing fence just to remain. But that's, if you want to discuss that a little further. But those fences are not part of this project, and they're not owned by the developer. So, and not required to have a buffer fence along the west and north. And I think that should cover it all. Do you have any questions?
I just have one question. We talked about this a bit last time, but the speed calming sign, who makes the decision on what side of the road it goes on, and where they're going to be to?
City engineer, that is
So-
in his purview.
Okay, so I guess.
Totally up to him.
Because it seems like it still needs two if they're going to put one in there.
If he feels that's warranted, then I guarantee you he will put 2 in there.
Okay.
But when I talked to him, he was not sure at this point, but they will have at least 1, and he wasn't sure of the location. As they get a little further down the road, they'll decide where exactly that will be.
Okay.
I
Thank you.
I have 3 questions for you. We'll start with the easy one. So I have setbacks, fencing, and traffic. So setbacks, on our chart, there we go. The corner side yard setback being reduced to 5.5 feet. Can you show me which corner that is? It makes me nervous to think traffic's gonna be that close to children and they're playing in the yard.
Yeah, it
But which-
is, 164 right there. So it's an internal
Okay,
access.
so it isn't a corner that cars will be turning, it's a pathway from sidewalks.
Right,
I'm less nervous, okay. Second question's about the jet outs. Maybe it's for the applicant, the depth of the jet outs. I'll ask him when he comes up, or her.
Okay,
Them?
yeah, Mr. Reynolds is here.
Okay. And the third is, I don't know, it's a question statement, traffic. So it's traffic. Everybody, we all hate traffic, and traffic's not going away as long as we keep all driving cars. It's going to get worse. It feels uncomfortable that our traffic report says this is a failing traffic area before we build anything, and after we build something, it's uncomfortable. But I feel it's also fair to say that's kind of a UDOT problem, because the 3 areas with the C's and F grades are UDOT intersections, and they won't give us any leeway to do anything. So it makes us look as if we're not responding to the traffic problem, when I think it's more UDOT not responding to the traffic problem. Because putting in a speed sign, I don't know if speed is the problem. It's the number of cars that's the problem at those intersections. I don't know. I just feel uncomfortable about it, but I understand that our hands are somewhat tied. I wish we could put a no left turn sign maybe, because that's where the problem is, out in coming on to 5300 South, all the intersections with 5300 South.
No, good questions, and actually I asked those same questions. The city, UDOT controls 5300 South, but the city is having, it's in our 10-year plan to widen 7th West off of 53rd there. They will be widening that, and also College Drive, where College Drive is the street
So
just
that would
to the
guess
east.
affect the traffic pattern in that area. That's good to know.
Yeah,
In a
so College Drive is right here. Guess you can see it. 2 blocks to the east. They will be widening that within the next 10 years, and then also they will be widening 7th West or Murray Boulevard off of 53rd there. Those plans are in the works, but that is,
So are they, sorry, excuse me, they're widening 7th West from 53rd North? Is that
Yes.
what they're- Oh, okay, great.
they've already done the south side. The north side is what they'll do, and they'll also be widening, actually, they will be widening 53rd a little bit, where it comes into College Drive. So that, the hotel that's on the corner of College Drive and 53rd, they're going to lose about 10 feet of their landscaping. That will be widened right there.
So what you're saying is that 3 problemed areas on 53rd could be addressed with that, because people in this
Well-
area could go north on Allen Drive and then turn either left or right for College Drive or 700 West, in which those areas, the traffic will improve.
Will be improved. It will be improved.
Eventually.
In theory, yes. Right. That's my understanding, yeah.
So we're not, I feel better. We're not ignoring the problem. We have a plan.
Correct. We
When
do-
will it happen?
We do have a plan, and it's in the within the next 10 years, giving funding, et cetera, et cetera. But yes, that is in the plans. And we're aware of the level of service. The problem is, though, the traffic report, or traffic study did indicate that 66 units on Allendale Drive is minuscule. It's not going to impact a whole lot. In fact, I didn't include my notes on there, but it seems like there was only like 30 or 40 cars at the peak time
Right.
that would be affected. Oh, and to answer your question as far as the left-hand turn on 53rd, I asked that question. Again, that's up to UDOT. But our city engineer said sometimes it sounds good in theory, but then it causes accidents by doing a left-hand turn, allowing that to happen.
Or no left-hand turn, just right only.
Yeah, but, so, again, that's up to UDOT, but sometimes by putting that in there, sometimes it's not actually solving the problem, it actually complicates the problem somewhere else. So, if that
I mean,
makes
all they can
sense.
do is close it off.
But then they, I know that's UDOT.
I think I mentioned this last time. My neighborhood sits just to the west of this, past 7th West, and about 10 years ago, they closed off our neighborhood, so you could only do a right-hand turn, which I think at some point they'll probably do that here, I would
Yeah.
imagine.
But that's UDOT, not us.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And another thing, I feel like it's worth stating for the residents who are listening. I feel like I've learned, hopefully I've learned this is correct in the commission. I came to the commission thinking if something gets an F, you're not going to pass. It's got an F grade. And I think I've learned that's not really how it works. We can't tell people you can't live here, you can't build here because the traffic's bad, because it's going to get worse everywhere, period. It is. We just have to come up with a way to address it. When we get an F grade. So we have a plan.
We do.
Okay.
Yeah, even the traffic engineer recommended a couple of options, speed bumps, et cetera, but our city engineer does not want those, and it presents issues with
Snowplows can't
fire.
handle.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Any
Any
other
other
questions?
Yeah, I'd like to go back to the billboard.
Or the speed sign?
No, the billboard.
Oh, okay, yes, okay.
So, what are we going to do when they want to turn this into an electronic message center?
Good question. And potentially they will. State legislature. the
Loves
billboard companies-
billboards.
The billboard company is really good at lobbying state legislature. So they actually could do that on this, and it's considered a maintenance, and they could do it without us stopping them.
But we have regulations about lighting in relationship to housing. That can only be so bright and so hours.
Not on
No
billboards, no.
hours, no brightness. Yowzers.
No, if we want changes, you'll have to contact lobbyists, and, because, yeah, they're pretty liberal with
Well, there's a lot of
billboards.
lobbyists, but they're on the opposite side of this discussion, so
Yeah, there's,
probably not going to help much.
no, probably not. There's nothing we can do as far as that. The only thing we can do is we have a moratorium on them. They can't have any more. We will allow them to relocate. That's about all we have any control over.
Yeah, because that looks like it's 40 feet tall. Pretty good sized sign.
Yeah, it's pretty significant sign, yeah.
It'll be taller than
Billboard.
the building itself.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And they potentially could have an electronic message without us being able to stop that. So,
It'll be a Seinfeld episode.
Honestly, what they'll probably do, which we see them do more often, is state law allows them, even though cities don't allow them to have billboards, it's probably more likely that they'll just move it because they are allowed to do that by state code. They'll probably just move it closer to the freeway. That's what I would anticipate. We've had like 3 of those this year, so.
Which maybe helps us a little bit because it takes the light away from the residents slightly.
Potentially. That's to help make you feel a little bit better. That's usually what they like to do. They like to get more people to see their signs, not less. And if we build a building, they'll be like, well, now you're, yeah, I'm not going to give it that.
I might go with a power
yeah,
tool.
but again, that's not set in stone, and that's up to them, so. Yep.
Darn
Okay,
them.
thanks.
Other questions? None. Thanks, Susan.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, could we have the applicant come to the podium? Please state your name and address.
Brad Reynolds, 2500 East Haven Lane.
Thanks for being here, Brad. Have you read the conditions?
I have.
Are you able to comply with those?
Yes, I will.
Perfect. Is there any other thing you would like to share with the commissioners?
No, we just, we're certainly happy to be back here in Murray, and we enjoy your planning staff. They're very responsive, and it's just a pleasure to have that. We're not used to that in cities, so we always enjoy working in Murray. So it's been a good experience.
Perfect. Do any of the commissioners have any questions for Mr. Reynolds.
I just had one.
Okay.
Can you talk to us about we are thankful that you're willing to work with us on the masonry wall along 5300 South. We appreciate that. Can you tell us a little bit about how it would look, how deep the jot outs will be?
Yeah, there's 4 jet outs along that 5300 South. And there is a picture, I think, in your packet that kind of depicts, it's a little different fence, but you can see on the side, there's wrought iron as it comes back, and it goes back to a, that precast concrete in the middle. So I think that opening there with the wrought iron and the plantings will certainly break up that 8-foot wall. And with the traffic that's on 5300 South, we feel that the 8-foot wall is certainly needed with residences there to try and buffer the noise and the traffic, all the traffic that goes through there.
I think if you also are going to plant it, as is seen in the rendering here, that makes a more pleasant pedestrian experience for those unfortunate souls that have to traverse this stretch.
Yeah, yes, that's true. And that's, I think, as we do that, it just kind of lightens up the fence, and it's good for everyone. I think it's aesthetically, it looks really nice.
And surprisingly, I think it functions as a slight deterrent to people who are thinking about tagging the wall. I'm not sure why, but I think it helps.
We hope so, yes. And I think it will, you're right.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you, appreciate
you.
your time.
Thank you. Okay. We'll now go to our public comment period. So if you would like to make a comment, please come up to the podium, state your name and address. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. If you're watching remotely, the only way you can make a comment is by emailing planningcommission@murray.utah.gov. I see nobody here, and we have no emails, so I'm going to have to close the public comment period. And let's have a discussion or a motion if there's no discussion.
I'm just going to make a statement that I think this saves the rest of the Allendale neighborhood. I think that had this project not moved to this point, the risk of those homes in that community viability long-term were limited at best. So
I made the motion last time. I'm happy for the preliminary subdivision. I'm happy to do it again unless there's more discussion. I'll make a motion that the Planning Commission grant final subdivision approval for the Ridges at Murray on the property address 5322 South Allendale Drive, 662 West, 6300 South, subject to the 12 conditions.
Thank you. We have a motion from Commissioner Lowry. Do we have a second?
Can I make a comment? That should be 5300 South, sorry.
Oh, sorry, 5300 South. Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks.
I'll second the motion.
We have a second from Commissioner Richards. Susan?
Okay, thanks. Mr. Lowry,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Ms. McKavich,
Yes.
Mr. Hacker,
Yes.
Mr. Ney,
yes.
and Chair Pearson.
Yes. Okay. Congratulations on your final subdivision approval, and we look forward to seeing it progress. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to our agenda item number 7, which is the Murray Station Townhomes, which will be presented by Zachary Smallwood.
Yes. So this is a design review for the Murray Station Townhomes, 6 townhomes at 184 West Burger Lane. Currently, it is a single-family dwelling located here on Burger Lane. Commerce Drive is right here. If you'll remember I don't remember what we called it back then, but now it's called the Current Apartments, or on the other side of Commerce Drive. So Bonnie View is what we were calling it, Bonnie View Apartments. This is in the MCMU in the East Sub-District, so they are allowed up to 40 units per acre based on their distance to the transit station and all that fun stuff. Here is the proposed site plan. As you can see, they will be tearing down that existing single-family home, putting in a drive here with 2 buildings with 3 units each. Here are some renderings of the proposal. Obviously, it's not going to have greenery all around it like the rendering shows, but
So that's a heck of a landscaping
that
plan.
is great landscaping plan.
Mountains?
But you can see the installation of the street trees, things like that, and the overall look of the buildings. They will have the required entrances in the front. Here's another rendering. So yeah, this is the entrance to one of the units. It's just mirrored on the other side over here. So site plan. As you can see, they are including 2 benches, 2 sets of bike racks, and landscaping that matches what's required in the MCMU. The setbacks for this property are between 15 and 25 feet from the back of the existing curb. So they did provide that, which is to be used, an 8-foot landscaping strip, 7-foot sidewalk. They are proposing to install that as well. Already mentioned 6 total units. Like I said, they could go up to 40 units per acre. However, this proposal is only at about 26 per acre. They are required to have 9 parking stalls and 12 are provided. Let's see. Couple things to go over real quickly. So in the area part of the code, it does say that the side yard areas needs to be used for private or for parking or open space, and they are proposing, so these will all have little open spaces. They'll all have their own little private yards there. I circle these things and then I go over them so quickly, so then I don't remember what I'm supposed to go over. Went through that. Garbage for this. Originally, the city engineer was concerned there was no appearance of a dumpster. We did talk through that, and they are going to be they're going to be individual garbage containers.
That they would take to the street?
Yeah, it'll be a private garbage company,
okay.
and they'll just probably pick up here on this street. Let's see.
But there's somewhere I read this somewhere, in the HOA or somewhere, that they need to be kept inside, be kept in the.
Yeah, they will be kept. They will need to be kept inside the. I'll just get to that here. So into this, these are the garages for the units. We worked through this. We've been working on this project for over a year, back and forth, just between different iterations of this type of project. They did show that they can fit those in there with the 2 parking spaces, everything like that. We've made sure that's all addressed. So I'll go over just the floor plan real quick. Ground floor is a garage area. They do have little storage areas in each of them. And then you get up to the second floor, which is the living and dining area. Then the third floor is where the 2 bedrooms are. And then there are a rooftop patio area as well. Couple elevations for you so you can see that there. No real concerns from staff. So we did send out 15 notices, and we did get 1 email in opposition, and that should have been in your packets. I printed the packets first, so they were in between 2 pages. You probably noticed that, in between the notice and the back of the notice. So anyway, I forgot to print it. So you did get that 1 email. Other than that, staff is recommending the Planning Commission approve the design review request at 184 West Burger Lane, subject to the 7 conditions.
Thank you. Any questions for Zach?
Yeah,
Go
can I
ahead.
ask some questions?
Sure.
So I went and drove the area. I feel like this is one of our typical transitions where the neighborhood's upset because it could potentially be upset because there's some single-family homes in the area. And whenever we change from single-family homes to any kind of other structure, it's alarming. So I wanted to make a few comments. One, townhomes. So I look at this too. People always say, would you want this beside your house? And I always think, is that a townhome? Is that a condo? Is it an apartment? And I just want to clarify that townhomes will be individually owned, right?
I don't know. That is up to the,
They'll be usually parceled, correct?
no, they will not.
They're not.
No,
So
we don't have, this is not a subdivision application. This is just a design review. So this is one parcel with 6 units on it. So they could be for rent.
Okay, that's
Which any
interesting.
property could
Yeah,
be.
which,
any property.
yeah,
Single-family
we
home
can't
could be for
dictate that, either way.
Well, but logic would dictate that one person won't buy all 12 units, all units per parcel, if that makes sense. So likely to live in. So likely it would be, it would likely would be for rent, though.
Yeah, that's what I would anticipate.
Well,
for
there's,
sure.
that's the discussion. If there's 6 parcels, it's 6,
Right.
it's most likely there'll be 6 owners.
Right.
If there were 6 parcels, but this is not a subdivision application. We are not reviewing a subdivision. This is just purely a design review. If they decide later that they would like to do a subdivision, you would see this come back as a preliminary subdivision.
Right.
Okay.
But this meets the current, this use meets the code,
It
correct?
does meet the current MCMU code, correct?
So along that same line of thought, driving the area, it's a confusing area. It's hard to decide if it wants to be industrial, if it wants to be residential, driving through there. And so I sat there and looked at it, tried to figure out, is this, where is it? REI drilling and Tuck landscaping, are they there to stay? And so this is an area that's becoming industrial, or is it residential? And I feel like this move would kind of make the area move more toward it remaining residential.
I will say that it is, that what has existed there, that's currently there, the homes that are currently there, have outlasted the previous transition to industrial. Because up to 2010, this was an industrial zone. And then it was changed to a mixed-use zone.
So now it's
So
potentially
this is a
staying-
second transition for this district. So I would say that the existing single-family homes have just outlasted the transition from into a large manufacturing area, and that's what it has been for, 70s, 80s? So, and then now it's transitioning into a mixed-use / residential area.
So maybe just for context,
Sure.
could you explain kind of the overarching goals for this zone and kind of how broad this zone is within the city itself?
Yeah, so the Murray Central Mixed Use is a wide-ranging zone. It is supposed to be a transitional zone from an industrial area to a walkable mixed-use, transit-oriented district. That's its intent.
So the intent is to maintain residential in the area
It's
with other uses as well. Mixed,
correct.
Yes.
Yeah, so it will be a mix of commercial and residential, not industrial, but commercial. What we anticipate are more commercial like retail type uses. So that has been what we have been waiting and hoping that would happen, is that this could largely down the road, a single-family neighborhood, a single-family home in this area could become worth a lot one day if this whole area redevelops. So it's kind of a mix of uses. Does that kind of get?
Yeah, how many projects in this particular district are approved and just not moving forward? Quite a few, right? We have major project on 48th, on the other side, I-15.
That's being built.
Okay.
It's under construction.
Okay, so.
Yeah, so it's under construction. Yeah, we have a lot going on in this district, much more than almost any other zoning district. Yeah. Yeah, we have 4,800 lofts. We have the current Murray Crossing's already been built, and then we do have. We're constantly talking to people on the phone about what's possible in this area.
For clarification, they're talking to you. They're calling you with
Yes.
ideas, right? Yeah.
Well, us, the planning division
Right.
staff, yes.
Well, I just feel like it's not always, you're not directing it per se.
No,
You're
they-
directing it, but not driving it.
We have a zoning in place. The city does not. We do not develop property.
Right.
Let me, can I ask you a question? Do you feel like this zone has brought additional investment to Murray City that wouldn't
Yeah.
have been here otherwise?
100%.
And what do you, typically, what does that do to other property values when that investment comes?
Increases other property values.
Right.
Yeah. Typically, just building something new will increase. It will have a ripple effect.
So it's something the neighborhood's not used to, but it's not heading toward an industrial park anymore.
No.
Any other questions for Zach? Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you, appreciate it. Can the applicant come up to the podium? Please state your name and address.
Good evening. Simon Rusinski with Designs of Tomorrow Architecture, 1083 South State Street.
Have you had a chance to read through these conditions?
I have, yes.
And will you be able to comply with them?
We will.
Thank you. Do you have any additional information you'd like to provide the commission?
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on a couple things. We'll just kind of start from what we were discussing a little bit earlier, rental versus for sale. So the current plan, as Zach had mentioned, there's not a plat in place right now, but we are working on a plat. So as the plan stands right now, we would have them be for rent, but we are working on a plat to have them be for sale. So the plan is to most likely in the future eventually have these 6 individual townhomes be for sale for individual ownership. And then I also just wanted to touch on a little bit regarding the zone and whatnot, talking about what we were talking about earlier with traffic getting worse. I kind of wanted to applaud Murray and their preemptive move in upzoning this area, recognizing the potential I think that Murray Central Station is. That conjunction of the red, the blue lines, and the front runner train. I think there's a lot of potential there as we want to continue to move away from car traffic. Also wanted to touch on the fact that we are providing 2 parking stalls inside each unit for those individual owners, but as townhome owners, they may only have 1 car, they may have other bikes and whatnot. I myself do not have a car and bike everywhere. We're also capitalizing on the bike racks, like Zach had mentioned, that are in that dedicated right of way. And also capitalizing upon kind of the remote work trend. So each of these units does have a home office in an attempt also to cut down on the amount of traffic going in and out of these townhomes. And then did want to mention that when we were looking at this lot initially, you know, there's a wide variety of uses that you can implement in the MCMU zone. Like Zach had mentioned, 40 units per acre is allowable, but we wanted to kind of obviously scale that back, provide something that's a little bit more transitional right now. As we just talked about, the zone is going through that change from industrial towards residential. I believe there are several other kind of proposals floating around on some of the parcels immediately south of Burger Lane as well. So we're seeing that move, but we wanted to provide something that was a little bit lower scale, a little bit lower density for the neighborhood as it starts to make that initial transition into hopefully more of a core of Murray around the asset that is Murray Central Station. So,
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Simon? No? Okay.
awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go ahead and open up the public comment period. As mentioned earlier, we did already receive 1 comment, and we have read that. And if you'd like to make a comment and you're here, please come to the podium, state your name and address. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Those watching remotely can make comments by emailing planningcommission@murray.utah.gov. And just a reminder that we will not address the comments when you're making them, but we may address them after the public comment period is closed. Go ahead.
My name's Jennifer McGowan. I live on 176 West Burger Lane, which is the house directly off to the side of the building properties. The one thing I wanted to ask or see if it could be addressed would be if there's a privacy fence or what they were planning on proposing with the house where I live at, because the only other one is the one across the street and then the ones in the circle. The current fence that we have right now it's just a little baby fence, I would say maybe 4 feet high. And that's connected to our driveway. And the property itself, it looks a lot bigger than it really is. So it was kind of an issue when we first had found out if there would be a privacy fence built there or what was planned to be done. The second one, which I think was already addressed, there is a lot of traffic on that street, being that it is a partly commercial area. We also have another business that's behind us. They come rushing out of, because it's a dead-end circle. They always come rushing out. Me having 3 children, that has always been a concern, being that my children have almost been hit numerous times due to the businesses rushing up and down the street. We don't have any speed limit signs, nothing to, prevent accidents. Being that there was also apartments built down the street, has also upped the, what's the word? Yeah, the crime there. Numerous businesses that I've spoken to on the street have had their businesses broken into. Dan, he's a business down the street to the left, right-hand side, has had his boat stolen, his truck's broken into, the building has been broken into a few times that he's stated. So we were wondering maybe if there was a way to have that area monitored once they are built. I don't know how that would be done. Just kind of concerning the safety issues of the kids that live on the street. There's mine and the ones that are in the circle as well. And I think that's about it.
Okay, thank you.
You said name and address?
Yes,
right?
please.
My name is Meg Barrett. I live on 349 East Vine Street. I'm actually really good friends with the woman who just spoke before, and I'm always at their house. One of my biggest concerns is exactly what she brought up with the traffic with the businesses, because there's quite a few, probably like 3 or 4 businesses in that area. And one of the major things that I've noticed since I've been constantly going to their house is that they don't really care about the people that live down the street. So they will have huge, like 18-wheelers parked in the middle of the street towards the stop sign where it leads to Commerce Drive. And it will be parked there in the middle of the street because they're unloading equipment off of that onto the businesses. And it gets to the point where it either gets backed up and we have to wait for them to finish unloading just to get to the house, or I personally will just cut and then hop the curb and just drive around them, which is probably not the safest bet. But, so that's one of the issues, because if we're adding more people there, I feel like that would cause more traffic to be coming in, whether we like it or not. So I feel like that should be something addressed, or even just like a street, like speed limit sign or something, or anything. Or like maybe no parking signs further down, so that there is that availability for access for cars for the people who live at the end of the street. And then my other, I guess, concern was street parking, yeah. Because there's the company that works behind their house. It's like a HVAC company. All of their employees park in that circle, right in front of the residents' houses. So there's already parking being taken up on that circle in that street, I guess. And then when we have family over, we park in the driveway, but sometimes we have to park in front of the house too. And so there's already constantly street parking off on the side. So if they're going to be building that, are they going to be allowed, street parking too? Or how are we going to take care of that? Like, is there going to be some sort of lot that they could have like guest parking for them? That way the streets aren't too congested, because we've got kids that are playing in the neighborhoods. They have got their bikes and their scooters and everything, and they like to play in the street. They play with sidewalk chalk in the street, and it's a very, it's not that, it's very narrow. It's not that wide. So I guess that's another concern to bring up. And then my other thing was the people that actually live there right now had no idea that this was happening, and they weren't able to make it. So I guess like if this is just like a beginning development, how long would be like something like this take to build? And the other thing with the kids being around a lot, and they're getting older, so they want to play outside a lot more, is how long would construction for something like this be? And would there be potential hazards for the kids be playing outside with a lot of construction equipment right next to the house? So, yeah, I think that's it.
Thank you. Any other comments? Zach, have we received any emails? Okay. Last call. Okay, we're going to go ahead and close the public comment period. Zach, you want to address some of those issues?
I would be happy to.
Thank you.
So, I'll start off with Jennifer's comments. Fencing, I really hadn't thought of that, only because of, I show that they're putting up fencing. Come on. So I see that they have proposed fencing. So that is definitely a condition that you guys could add if you want something specific. Typically, in the MCMU, we have a fencing requirement when it's next to a residential zone, not necessarily a single-family dwelling. So it's between zones, which, yes. So, but that is something that you can definitely talk with the applicant and see if they're comfortable doing something like that.
Okay.
Because I do agree. I think there should be a little bit, some barrier fencing there. Traffic, I'll address both of them. That's the street parking, for example, that we can't do a lot about when it's just regular cars. If it's employees should be parking they should have enough off-street parking spaces to be parking on their site. And so that shouldn't be a thing. I can have it looked at. We do have our code enforcement officer that I can send out. The problem with that is that it is a public street and they are allowed to park there for up to 72 hours. So the car would have to not move for 72 hours. And then let's see. So with the traffic though, and specifically the trucks, I will definitely have that looked at. They should not be loading and unloading, especially if it's like Tuck Landscaping. They have acres of property. They can do it on their own property.
So Zach, technically, how do you look at that? Is it best if they call you when the truck's there and the enforcement comes out then? Or do you just say it's happened in the past and they come over and say, how's that? How do you?
If you guys would be willing to, if you guys want to give me like an idea of times, I can let our code enforcement officer know. And then she can go out, and she's very aggressive. So. Let's talk offline. Otherwise, you need to come back up to the podium, but I would be more than happy to talk to you offline and get that taken care of. So yes, I will get that looked at for sure. She's down there a lot already because a lot of those places don't have business licenses. So she's already down there a lot. So let's see. Construction, I can't speak to that typically. It just depends on materials. I can have the applicant speak to how long it's going to take to build those up. Let's see. And crime stuff, that's always a tricky thing. Crime in general across the entire country has gone up. A lot of property damage, a lot of theft. And that is something that we're seeing not only in the city, but in the valley, in the state, country. That is something. And yeah, I can't really address it.
Mr.
Other than, Other than having additional people living
I
in the
guess,
neighborhood,
yes, thank
you have
you.
more eyes on the neighborhood.
You
that are
do
paying
have
attention to
you
things
do
like
have
that,
more
so.
people there at night because I'm sure it gets really lonely and quiet there at night when all the businesses are closed. Yeah, so having 6 more people there will probably help make that not feel as comfortable to go and vandalize.
And isn't that part of the movement nationwide of walkable cities where you want residential near commercials so that there's
Correct.
people living and walking and supervising and
Yes.
that reduces crime?
Yes.
So that's the intent in the long run,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Can you address 2 more things?
No, I'm done. Yeah, of course. What's
Can
up?
you just mention the public notification that was sent out?
Yes, we do send public notices. This was a 300-foot radius around this property. So let me get back here. So 300 feet in a radius from that, everybody gets a notice. I don't know off the top of my head if any of those were returned. I don't think any of them were returned in the mail, but everybody does get noticed within 300 feet. And then also, it is posted on the Murray City website. It's posted on the state public notice website.
And
That's all there.
those are mailed through the mail, is that correct?
Yeah, the 300-foot notice is mailed through the mail to the property owner.
Correct, right, to
Yes.
the property owner. Thank you. And then a speed limit sign was mentioned. I mean, is that something we could ask the city to look at and see if that's
Yep.
appropriate?
Yep, I can bring it up to Trey.
Okay,
It
thank
would
you.
be in the city engineer's purview.
Okay, perfect. Does anybody have any questions for Zach?
Zach, can you do the same for parking in that cul-de-sac circle? I mean, I know there are a lot of big trucks on that street, and they have to have someplace to turn around.
Yeah.
In which case, if current employees are parking in that circle, that's going to obstruct other safety vehicles coming down
Correct.
this street as well. So, again, code enforcement to get employees parking where they should
Yeah.
in their business
Sure.
stalls.
Yeah, I'll have, I can talk to code enforcement and see if maybe they can pull a later night or something and kind of check out and see who's actually parking there. My concern is that, specifically, I believe it was, Meg that brought it up, that she, does visit that area and sometimes do have to park on the street. And so I would hate to red curb it and then not give her a place to park and then we ticket and then it's all
Or just
great. And so-
resident parking only.
Exactly. That's a very good point. We have not done that thus far in the city, but that does not stop us from starting.
And there are only a few residents there, so that
Correct.
shouldn't be too big of a problem.
You wouldn't think so, no. So I will talk to those that be.
Okay,
Good, thanks.
other questions? Okay, thank you. Can we have the applicant come back up? Thank you. Can you just state your name and address again for us?
Yeah, Simon Rusinski, with Designs of Tomorrow Architecture, 1083 South State Street.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask you a couple questions that were brought up during the public comment period. The
Sure.
fencing, could you talk about what you're planning on doing for fencing?
So I did not mention that, but yes, we are planning on doing a 6-foot privacy fence. We're planning on constructing that out of a actually higher quality material than vinyl fencing, for example. We're planning on using either wood or metal, have that be, give that cement a little bit more longevity and durability and whatnot, and just make it look a little bit more aesthetically nice as well.
Okay, so you wouldn't be opposed to us putting a condition that you put a
Not at all,
fence
not at all.
around the?
Yep, we were planning on that regardless, so.
Okay, and then there was a question about construction time. I know we can't hold you to anything, but you want to just talk about what your plan looks like?
Yeah, so things are a little bit dependent right now too on the development of the plat for individual sale. So the construction timeline's a little bit up in the air. We're also kind of eyeing a couple of surrounding proposed developments to see how some of those things play out. So it may be a minute before construction starts. I understand that if approval is granted tonight, we have 2 years to act on that, with extensions that could be granted over time if requested. If we were to start construction, as soon as we get our building permit, if we were to apply for building permit right after we're granted approval tonight, if that's the case, I would anticipate a construction timeline probably of about a year to a year and a half. We're looking at phasing the construction of the townhomes, and we understand that a condition of the approval here is that using the street to stage any construction equipment is strongly, strongly discouraged. So we're going to diligently work with whatever general contractor is chosen to make sure that we are not staging anything on the street and that everything is contained to the site itself. And the hope is that phasing the construction also helps with that.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Simon? Okay, thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I had a
go
comment
ahead.
about the conditions, or a question about the conditions. Condition number 1A, it says meeting city, I apologize for not mentioning this earlier, meet city subdivision and condominium requirements, but everywhere else we've said townhomes. Does that matter?
It says if the units are to be privately owned.
Okay, so that covers it.
Yeah, because like I said, we've been working on this for over a year. There have been different iterations of this project that have been reviewed internally in like concept reviews. Some of them were privately owned, some of them weren't. So Trey put that in as to make sure that we watch for it if it needs to go down that road.
Okay, thank you for that
Yep.
clarification.
Is that all? Other comments? Okay. If we have no other comments, then we can have a discussion, or I could entertain a motion.
I'll go ahead and make a motion. And so I would make a motion that the Planning Commission approve the request for design review for the proposed Murray Station townhomes at the property 184 West Burger Lane, subject to the 7 conditions, with an additional condition of a privacy fence to be installed on the specifically on the east portion of the property.
Okay, perfect. We have,
Can I ask a question? Do you want to limit it to the east side of the property, or do you want to include?
Yeah, I already showed on the west side, so I'm okay.
okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Lowry. Do we have a second?
Mr. Chair, I can second the motion.
Okay, we have a second from Vice Chair Milkovich. Any other discussions on the motion before we move forward? Okay, Zach?
Okay. Commissioner Lowry.
Yes.
Commissioner Milkovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Richards.
Yes.
Commissioner Ney.
Yes.
Commissioner Hacker.
Yes.
And Chair Peterson.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, congratulations, and we look forward to seeing what happens with the property. Okay,
And do you guys know that you can go onto the Murray website, and there is a report an issue thing there for code enforcement, as well as just calling directly for code enforcement, and they do respond to you, so don't hesitate to use it.
One other thing I'd like to add, if I could, and it was great to watch the discussion between the public and the applicant. I would just like to state, publicly, it is a best practice, not required, but it's a best practice to have those discussions, and you feel free to have those, at the site. I personally appreciate when developers or builders. It's apparent that they've talked to the neighbors, they've incorporated concerns that they have. Obviously, this was easily, what the developer or architect was planning on doing is exactly what the residents were hoping for with a fence. But it's a great conversation to have, and kind of a best practice to do that before the meeting when possible.
And then I'll just add, just like Commissioner Ney said, so this is just the main page on our website, and it's this second button here. I can't hold it down or it'll click on it. But it's that second button, report a concern. If you go there, you can also report that as well, and that will get routed to the right person, so code enforcement or police, whoever it needs to go to. So, but I'm happy to talk afterwards.
And I would add one more thing, and that's to stay in touch with Zach and Susan and those at the planning office in Murray about parking on the street. Not so much just code enforcement items, but other things that we talked about, like parking in the cul-de-sac, like employees parking on the street versus at their businesses, and seeing what kind of help we can get from the staff.
And this is also, this is early development. You guys obviously have seen some of the larger projects in and around you. More will come down the pike. But you guys, this is your neighborhood. So having contact with the staff, understanding what's happening in and around, because he told you, you know, the notices only go within 300 feet of your home or the project. So keep up to date with what's going on. When we make changes to the code, that's your opportunity to come in and have a strong influence on what we do with the code. So pay attention, because your area is going to change. That's all there is to it. It's going to change.
And keep your other neighbors informed too. Maybe they got informed, maybe they threw whatever they got from the city away, maybe whatever, but stay in touch with the neighbors. Yeah.
Okay, I'd just like to thank the public for coming. We appreciate the comments, and we like to hear from the public when we make these decisions. So we're going to move ahead. All we have left is announcements and questions, and whatever Zach has for us.
We're going to have a meeting on the 20th, and it's a doozy, so. R.C. Willie,
Oh,
so.
Do we have any information on the new city hall?
So far, we're still being told that it's May, that we'll be moving in, and that public meetings will happen in June over there. So hopefully you guys will have a nice new building. We'll have a nice new building. And yeah, so that's all I have at this time. I'll keep you guys abreast of any training opportunities. I'm thinking out loud here, but I think I want to probably bring in some sort of transportation engineer and kind of give you an education on transportation impact studies and what they mean and how they are conducted. Some of their good things and some of their bad things. So I would love for you guys to have that. So if you have any feedback, if you have anything like that you want to hear from somebody specific, we can reach out to contacts and figure out if we can get some sort of training. So if something like that interests you, let us know, because sometimes we're at a loss of what to bring forward. So, okay.
thanks. Any questions for Zach before we adjourn? If not, we need a motion to adjourn.
And make a motion, we adjourn at 8:09, 8:08?
Is there a second?
Let's do 8:08.
8:08, second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.